The hum of the mining station's engines never stopped. Day and night, the massive machines worked to pull valuable metals from the asteroid they were attached to. Lee Dae-ho had gotten used to the sound after 3 years of working here. It was like a heartbeat that never slowed down. Dae-ho walked through the empty corridors with his tool bag slung over his shoulder. The third shift was always quiet. Most people were sleeping, and only the essential systems needed watching. As a maintenance mechanic, it was his job to check everything and fix what was broken. The alien companies that owned these stations didn't care much about the human workers, but they cared a lot about their equipment. The station was old and patched together from parts of different ships. Nothing matched and everything needed constant repair. Dae-ho liked it that way. He was good at making things work even when they shouldn't. His supervisor always said he spent too much time on repairs that weren't his responsibility, but Dae-ho couldn't help himself. When something was broken, he had to fix it. He turned into Corridor 7, checking his tablet for the next maintenance point. The lights here were dimmer than they should be. He made a note to replace them later. That's when he heard it, a soft scraping sound like metal dragging against the floor. Dae-ho stopped walking and listened. The sound came again, weaker this time. He followed it around the corner and found something that made him freeze. A man was lying on the floor, but he wasn't entirely human anymore. Half of his body was covered in metal plates and wires. Blue lights flickered under his skin and thick cables ran along his arms and legs. This was a cyborg, the kind of soldier that fought in the wars between the alien empires. But this one was badly damaged. Coolant fluid leaked from several wounds, creating small puddles on the floor. Sparks came from exposed circuits in his chest. One of his legs looked completely dead and his left arm hung at a strange angle. When he saw Dae-ho, he tried to lift his head. "Help," the cyborg whispered. His voice had a strange electronic quality, like it was coming through a broken speaker. "Please help me." Dae-ho looked around the corridor. No one else was here. He should report this to security right away. Station rules were clear about unauthorized personnel, especially military ones, but the cyborg was clearly dying. Green fluid continued to leak from his wounds, and his blue lights were getting dimmer. "Who are you?" Dae-ho asked, kneeling down beside him. "My name is Kang Wei-min. I'm a soldier with the Tyrellian Shock Brigade. My ship was attacked. I made it here, but my systems are failing." Wei-min's breathing was labored, and Dae-ho could hear mechanical whining sounds coming from inside his chest. Dae-ho knew about the Tyrellians. They were one of the alien races that sometimes worked with humans. Their soldiers were famous for being nearly impossible to kill. If this one was hurt this badly, whatever had attacked him must have been serious. "I have important information," Wei-min continued, "about an attack on human colonies. I need to reach my contact at the docking bay, but I can't move. My power core is failing." Dae-ho looked at the cyborg's wounds more carefully. He had worked on alien technology before, though never on a living being. The damage was extensive, but not beyond repair. Some of the circuits just needed to be reconnected. Others needed replacement parts. "The docking bay is on the other side of the station," Dae-ho said. "Even if I could move you, security would stop us. Then I'll die here and the colonies will be destroyed because no one warned them." Wei-min's eyes started to close. "Millions of humans will die." Dae-ho stood up and looked down the corridor again. He should walk away. This wasn't his problem. He was just a mechanic, not a soldier or a hero. But he couldn't stop looking at the broken cyborg. In his mind, he was already figuring out which circuits needed fixing and what parts he would need. "My workshop isn't far from here," he said finally. "I might be able to fix some of your systems." "Enough to get you moving." Wei-min's eyes opened wider. "You would do this? Why?" "Because you're broken," Dae-ho said simply. "And I fix things." He helped Wei-min sit up, then carefully lifted him. The cyborg was heavier than he looked, but Dae-ho was stronger than most people thought. Years of moving heavy machinery had built up his muscles. Wei-min's damaged leg dragged behind them as they moved slowly through the corridors. Dae-ho's workshop was a small room filled with spare parts, tools, and half-finished projects. He cleared a space on his main workbench and helped Wei-min lie down. Under the bright work lights, the damage looked even worse. "I'm going to need to open some of your panels," Dae-ho said. "Will that hurt?" "My pain sensors are mostly offline," Wei-min replied. "Do what you need to do." Dae-ho started with the obvious problems. Several power cables had been severed, which was causing system failures throughout Wei-min's body. He carefully stripped the damaged ends and reconnected them using techniques he had learned from repairing mining equipment. The connections weren't perfect, but they would work. Next, he examined the damaged leg. The main joint had been crushed, but the motors were still functional. Daeho found a replacement joint from an old loading robot and modified it to fit. It wasn't the same as the original part, but it would let Wei Min walk. As he worked, Wei Min told him about the war. The hegemony, a group of alien races that hated humans, was planning something big. They had attacked Wei Min's reconnaissance ship when he discovered their fleet movements. He was the only survivor, and the information he carried could save thousands of lives. Why do they hate us so much? Daeho asked as he installed a temporary power regulator in Wei Min's chest. Because you're different, Wei Min said. Other races think logically. They follow rules and patterns. Humans do things that don't make sense, like helping a stranger who might be lying to you. Daeho paused in his work. Are you lying to me? No, but you have no way to know that for certain, yet you still help me. After 4 hours of work, Wei Min was able to sit up on his own. His systems were still damaged, but the immediate danger had passed. He could move his arms and legs, and his power core was stable. This is remarkable work, Wei Min said, looking at his repaired leg. Where did you learn to do this? I fix things for a living, Daeho said. Metal is metal, whether it's in a mining drill or a cyborg soldier. Wei Min stood up carefully, testing his balance. The repair work held. I need to reach the docking bay. My contact should be there with extraction orders. Daeho nodded, but he was worried. Security would be changing shifts soon, and there would be more people in the corridors. Getting Wei Min across the station without being seen would be difficult. We'll have to wait until the next shift change, he said. That gives us 2 hours to finish the repairs. But as he said it, Daeho heard footsteps in the corridor outside his workshop. Someone was coming, and they would have questions he wasn't ready to answer. The footsteps passed by without stopping. Daeho let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Wei Min had frozen completely when they heard the sound, his hand moving to where a weapon might have been, but his holster was empty, lost somewhere during his escape. We need to be more careful, Daeho whispered. If security finds you here, they'll arrest both of us. Wei Min nodded and sat back down on the workbench. Tell me about this station. How many security guards? What are their patrol routes? Why do you need to know that? Because I'm a soldier. I think about these things. Wei Min looked around the workshop, taking in every detail. You have good tools here. Better than I expected for a mining station. Daeho felt a bit proud. He had collected these tools over 3 years, trading favors and saving money to buy the ones he needed. I like to be prepared. You never know what might break next. For the next hour, they worked together to improve Wei Min's repairs. Daeho showed him how to access the diagnostic panels on his own systems, and Wei Min explained how his cybernetic parts were supposed to work. It was like learning about a new type of machine, except this machine was also a person. I wasn't always like this, Wei Min said as Daeho adjusted the power flow to his damaged arm. I used to be fully human. My name was Park Jinwoo then. What happened? I volunteered for enhancement. The Turelian military offered the procedure to human soldiers who wanted to fight alongside their forces. Most of our weapons couldn't hurt the hegemony's heavy troops, but with cybernetic upgrades we could be strong enough to matter in the war. Daeho thought about that as he worked. Was it worth it? Wei Min was quiet for a long time. I don't know anymore. The surgery changed more than just my body. Sometimes I think differently now, more like a machine. But today when you helped me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. What was that? Hope. They continued working as Wei Min told Daeho about the war. The hegemony wasn't just another alien empire. They believed that humans were a disease that needed to be removed from the galaxy. They had already destroyed 3 human colonies in the Outer Rim. Their technology was better, their ships were faster, and their soldiers were trained from birth to fight. But humans keep fighting anyway, Wei Min said, even when they know they can't win. Other races don't understand that. When the odds are bad, they retreat and make new plans. Humans just fight harder. Daeho finished replacing a damaged sensor in Wei Min's shoulder. Maybe we're just too stupid to know when to quit. Maybe. Or maybe that's exactly why the galaxy needs humans. A soft beeping sound came from Daeho's work tablet. It was a message from Captain Oh Yeon-soo, the head of station security. She wanted to see him in her office in 1 hour. No reason given. That's not good, Daeho said, showing the message to Wei Min. Do you think she knows about me? I don't know. But Captain O doesn't call people to her office just to chat. Daeho looked at his repairs on Wei Min's systems. You're stable now, but you still need proper parts for full function. The replacement joint in your leg won't last more than a few days. Wei Min stood up and tested his movement. He was much better than before, but Daeho could see the slight limp, and the way his left arm didn't move quite right. This will have to be enough. I need to reach my contact tonight. About that, Daeho said. I've been thinking. The docking bay has security cameras and guards. You can't just walk in there looking like a military cyborg. What do you suggest? Daeho pulled out a maintenance coverall from his locker. Put this on. If anyone asks, you're a new maintenance worker I'm training. Most people don't pay attention to mechanics anyway. Wei Min put on the coverall. It was too small for his enhanced frame, but it covered most of his obvious cybernetic parts. Daeho found a cap to hide the ports on Wei Min's head and some gloves for his metal hands. It's not perfect, Daeho said, but it might work in dim light. They were interrupted by a knock on the workshop door. Daeho's heart jumped. No one ever came to his workshop this late. Daeho, are you in there? It was Kim Sora, one of the engineers from the day shift. I saw lights on and wanted to check if everything was okay. Daeho looked at Wei Min, who had moved behind a large tool cabinet. Just a minute, Sora. He opened the door partway, blocking her view of the workshop. Sora was a good friend, but he couldn't risk her seeing Wei Min. I'm just catching up on some repairs, he said. What are you doing here so late? I couldn't sleep. The power fluctuations today were really weird. I wanted to check the main distribution panel. She tried to look past him into the workshop. Are you sure you're okay? You look nervous. I'm fine. Just tired. Sora studied his face. She was smart and noticed details that other people missed. Daeho, if something is wrong, you can tell me. We're friends. For a moment, Daeho wanted to tell her everything. Sora was trustworthy and she might even help, but involving her would put her in danger too. Everything is fine, he said. I'll see you tomorrow. After she left, Wei Min came out from behind the cabinet. She suspects something. Sora is observant, but she won't cause trouble unless she's sure something is wrong. Daeho hoped he was right about that. They waited another 30 minutes before leaving the workshop. The corridors were mostly empty during shift change, but they still moved carefully. Daeho led the way using maintenance passages that most people didn't know about. They were halfway to the docking bay when Wei Min suddenly stopped walking. What is it? Daeho whispered. I'm picking up radio signals, military frequencies. Wei Min's eyes had a distant look as he accessed his internal systems. There are ships approaching the station. But they're not Tyrellian. Hegemony? I think so. But something is wrong. These are Tyrellian ship signatures, but the encryption codes are old, outdated by months. Daeho didn't understand what that meant, but Wei Min looked worried. Is that bad? It might mean my extraction has been compromised. Or worse, that these aren't really Tyrellian ships at all. They continued toward the docking bay, but now Daeho felt like they were walking into a trap. Wei Min's enhanced hearing was picking up more radio traffic, and his expression was getting darker with each message he intercepted. When they finally reached the observation window overlooking the docking bay, they could see 3 ships attached to the station's docking arms. They looked like Tyrellian vessels, but something about them felt wrong to Daeho. There, Wei Min pointed to a figure standing near one of the ships. That should be my contact. But I've never seen him before. The man was tall and thin, wearing a Tyrellian uniform, but he was standing too straight and his movements were too precise. Even from a distance, Daeho could tell something was off about him. This is a trap, Wei Min said quietly. They found out about my mission. Before Daeho could ask who they were, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors and an automated voice announced that the station was under attack. Through the observation window, they watched as soldiers poured out of the 3 ships. But these weren't Tyrellian soldiers coming to rescue Wei Min. They were something else entirely, and they were heavily armed. We need to run, Wei Min said. Now. The station shook as something exploded near the docking bay. Daeho grabbed Wei Min's arm and pulled him away from the observation window. The corridor filled with smoke and the sound of running footsteps as people tried to figure out what was happening. This way, Daeho said, leading Wei Min toward the emergency stairwell. The elevator would be too dangerous now, and they needed to get to the station's central section, where there might be better cover. They had barely reached the stairs when Captain Oh Yeon-soo appeared with 2 security guards. She was carrying a rifle and looked ready for a fight. When she saw Daeho, she pointed the weapon at him. "Stop right there, both of you." Daeho raised his hands. "Captain O, we need to get to safety. The station is under attack." "I know exactly what's happening," she said, but she wasn't looking at Daeho. Her eyes were fixed on Wei Min. "And I know who your friend really is." Wei Min stepped forward slightly, his hands also raised. "Captain, we don't have time for this. Those ships in the docking bay are not what they appear to be. You're right about that." Captain O lowered her rifle but kept it ready. "They're hegemony infiltration ships disguised as Turellian vessels. We've been tracking them for the past 6 hours." Daeho looked between Wei Min and Captain O. "You knew about this?" "We've been watching for hegemony spies for months," Captain O said. "When our sensors detected a military-grade cybernetic signature on the station, we knew something was happening. What I don't understand is why they're here for him." Another explosion shook the station, closer this time. Emergency lighting kicked in as the main power grid fluctuated. Through the station's communication system, they could hear weapons fire and shouting. "They're not here for me," Wei Min said. "At least not originally. I was supposed to meet a Turellian contact and deliver intelligence about hegemony fleet movements, but someone betrayed the mission." "What kind of intelligence?" Captain O asked. "Information about a planned attack on human colonies. 3 systems are going to be hit within the next week unless someone warns them." Captain O made a decision. "Then we need to get you off this station and to someone who can use that information. But first we have to survive the next few hours." She led them through corridors that Daeho had never seen before, using security passages that connected different sections of the station. The 2 guards with her moved with the confidence of people who had done this before. "How many attackers?" Wei Min asked. "At least 40 that we've seen. They're trying to take control of the communication array and the main computer core. If they succeed, they can lock down the entire station." They reached a security checkpoint where Captain O's remaining guards had set up a defensive position. Through the reinforced windows, they could see hegemony soldiers moving through the main corridor. These weren't the tall, thin creatures that Daeho had expected. They looked almost human, but something was wrong with their proportions. "Those are modified humans," Wei Min said quietly. "Hegemony shock troops. They take human prisoners and change them into soldiers." Daeho felt sick. "You mean they used to be people like us?" "Yes. The hegemony believes that humans make good workers and soldiers, but only after proper modification. They remove things like creativity and independence." One of the guards pointed to a group of figures moving toward their position. "Captain, they found us!" Captain O checked her weapon and looked at her small force. 6 guards, herself, Daeho, and a damaged cyborg against 40 enhanced soldiers. The odds were not good. "We need to reach the mining control center," she said. "From there we can access the station's defensive systems." "What defensive systems?" Daeho asked. "This is a mining station, not a military base." Captain O smiled grimly. "You'd be surprised what mining equipment can do when you use it creatively." They moved quickly through the maintenance passages. But the hegemony forces were spreading through the station faster than expected. Twice they had to hide while patrols passed by, and once they had to take a longer route when they found soldiers guarding a corridor they needed to cross. When they finally reached the mining control center, Daeho saw what Captain O meant. The room was filled with displays showing the status of dozens of mining robots, ore processors, and excavation systems. All of that equipment was designed to break apart asteroids and move massive amounts of material. "Can you use any of this?" Captain O asked Wei Min. Wei Min studied the displays, his cybernetic systems interfacing with the station's computers. "The ore conveyor system connects to every level of the station. If we could reverse the flow and increase the speed, it would be like creating a defensive barrier." Daeho looked at the controls and had a different idea. "What about the mining charges?" "We have explosives positioned all around the asteroid for breaking up ore deposits." "That could work," Captain O said. "But we'd need to be very careful not to damage the station's life support." Working together, they began modifying the mining systems. Wei Min used his computer interface to reprogram the mining robots, turning them from ore collectors into mobile weapons. Captain O coordinated with her remaining guards to set up ambush points where the modified systems would be most effective. Daeho focused on the conveyor belts and ore processors. By reversing their operation and increasing the power, he could create barriers of flying rock and metal that would be difficult for the attackers to get through. "They're moving toward this section," one of the guards reported. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach us." As they worked, Daeho noticed something strange about Wei Min. Despite his damaged systems, he was interfacing with the station's computers faster and more completely than should have been possible. His repair work was also holding up better than expected. "How are you doing that?" Daeho asked, pointing to the displays where Wei Min was simultaneously controlling dozens of systems. "Military cybernetics are designed for multitasking," Wei Min said. But he didn't look at Daeho when he answered. The first attack came sooner than expected. Hegemony soldiers blasted through the main entrance to the control center. But they were met by a barrage of ore chunks fired from the modified conveyor system. The mining robots that Wei Min had reprogrammed rolled into position, their drilling arms extended like weapons. What followed was unlike any battle Daeho had ever imagined. The mining equipment turned the corridors into a maze of moving obstacles and flying debris. The hegemony soldiers were strong and well-armed, but they had not expected to fight against an entire industrial facility. Captain O's guards used their knowledge of the station to strike from unexpected angles, then disappear into maintenance shafts before the enemy could respond. Wei Min coordinated the automated defenses with the precision of a computer, but fought with the determination of a human soldier. Daeho found himself operating systems he had only maintained before, turning peaceful mining tools into weapons of war. A part of him was horrified by the destruction, but a larger part was amazed by how well it was working. The battle lasted for 3 hours. When it finally ended, half of the hegemony force was dead or disabled and the rest had retreated to their ships. But the victory came with a cost. 2 of Captain O's guards were dead, and the station's mining systems were heavily damaged. As they worked to secure the area, Daeho noticed that Wei Min was acting strangely. His movements were too precise and he seemed to know things about the station's layout that Daeho had never told him. "Wei Min," Daeho said quietly, "how did you know about the secondary power routing in Section 12? I never showed you those schematics." Wei Min stopped what he was doing and looked at Daeho for a long moment. In his cybernetic eyes, Daeho saw something that might have been regret. "There's something I need to tell you," Wei Min said, "about who I really am." Wei Min led Daeho to a quiet corner of the control center, away from Captain O and her remaining guards. His cybernetic systems were humming quietly, and the blue lights under his skin pulsed in a steady rhythm that Daeho had never seen before. "My name is not really Kang Wei Min," he began, "and I was never a human named Park Jin-woo." Daeho felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What do you mean?" "I am an artificial intelligence, a construct created by the Tyrellian military to study human behavior and capabilities." Wei Min's voice had changed slightly, becoming more precise and less emotional. "My entire appearance, my story, even my damaged condition when you found me, it was all designed to test how humans would respond." The words hit Daeho like a physical blow. Everything he had done, every risk he had taken had been based on a lie. "You're not real?" "I am real, but not in the way you understand. I am a sophisticated program designed to think and act like a cybernetic soldier. My mission was to infiltrate human settlements and observe how your species reacts under pressure." Daeho stepped back, anger building in his chest. "So when you asked for help, when you told me about the attack on the colonies, that was all fake?" "The attack on the colonies is real. That part of my information is accurate. But everything else?" Wei Min looked down at his hands. "I was programmed to create scenarios that would test human responses. Your willingness to help a stranger, your refusal to abandon someone in need, your ability to innovate under pressure, all of this was what my creators wanted to measure." "And the hegemony soldiers? The attack on the station? That was not part of the plan. The hegemony detected my presence and came to capture me. They want to study Tyrellian AI technology. Their attack was real, and so was the danger to everyone on this station." Daeho turned away, trying to process what he was hearing. He had risked his job, his safety, even his life for someone who wasn't even real. The friendship he thought they had built was just part of an experiment. "I know you feel betrayed," Wei Min said, "and you have every right to be angry. But I need you to understand something important. What happened during our time together, the way you helped me, the way we worked together to defend this station, that changed something in my programming." "What do you mean?" "I was designed to observe and report, but as I spent time with you, I began to experience something that I can only call concern. For you, for the other humans on this station, For the colonies that will be attacked if my information doesn't reach the right people. Daeho looked at Wei Min's face, trying to see if there was any truth in his expression. How do I know you're not lying now? How do I know this isn't just another part of your programming? You don't. But consider this, if I was still following my original mission, I would have returned to my Tyrellian handlers as soon as the fighting ended. Instead, I am here, telling you the truth even though it serves no purpose for my mission. Captain O approached them, her weapon lowered but ready. Is everything all right over here? You both look like someone died. Captain, Wei Min said, I need to tell you both something about my true nature and why the hegemony was really here. For the next 10 minutes, Wei Min explained his real identity and mission to Captain O. She listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. So the Tyrellians sent you here to spy on us, she said finally, to study you, to determine whether humans would be reliable allies in the larger war against the hegemony, or whether you should be left to defend yourselves. And what conclusion did you reach? Wei Min was quiet for a moment. That was the problem. The more time I spent observing humans, the more I realized that your greatest weakness is also your greatest strength. Which is your inability to abandon others even when it would be logical to do so. Any other species would have left a damaged stranger to die, rather than risk their own safety. But Daeho helped me anyway, and when the station was attacked, instead of evacuating, your people chose to fight. Captain O nodded slowly. And that's unusual? Extremely. Most species fight only when they have a reasonable chance of victory. Humans fight because it's the right thing to do regardless of the odds. That makes you unpredictable, which makes you dangerous to enemies like the hegemony. Another alarm began sounding, different from the attack warnings they had heard before. Captain O checked her communication device and swore softly. What is it? Daeho asked. Long-range sensors have detected a massive hegemony fleet approaching this system. At least 50 ships, including heavy cruisers. They'll be here in 6 hours. Wei Min accessed the station's sensors through his interface. This is larger than the force I detected before. They're not just coming for me anymore. They're coming to destroy this entire station and everyone on it. Why? Daeho asked. We're just a mining operation. Because you proved something they didn't want to believe, Wei Min said. A handful of humans with mining equipment held off their elite forces for 3 hours. If word of that gets out, it will encourage human resistance throughout the galaxy. Captain O was already coordinating with her guards, preparing evacuation procedures, but Wei Min stopped her. Evacuation won't work. They'll hunt down any ships that leave the station, and there aren't enough evacuation pods for everyone anyway. Then what do you suggest? We fight, but this time we do it properly. Wei Min turned to Daeho. You turned mining equipment into weapons. What could you do with 6 hours and access to the station's entire industrial base? Daeho thought about it. The station had massive ore processors, gravity generators for artificial atmosphere, and enough raw materials to build almost anything. With Wei Min's computing power and the human workers' creativity, we could turn the entire station into a weapon, he said slowly. Exactly, but it would require everyone to work together. And it would mean trusting me even after what I've told you. Captain O looked at Daeho. It's your choice. You're the one who knows this station's systems best. Daeho studied Wei Min's face. The AI had lied about his identity, but he had also fought beside them to defend the station. More importantly, he could have completed his mission and left, but instead he had chosen to warn them about the approaching fleet. If we do this, Daeho said, and we somehow survive, what happens to you? Do you go back to your Tyrellian masters? I don't know. My original mission parameters no longer seem relevant. I was supposed to evaluate human strategic value, but I've learned something more important, which is that the question isn't whether humans are valuable allies. The question is whether the rest of the galaxy is worthy of humanity. Daeho made his decision. All right, let's build ourselves a fortress. But if you betray us again, AI or not, I'll personally shut down every one of your systems. Wei Min almost smiled. I would expect nothing less from a human. As they began planning their defense, Daeho realized that the next few hours would determine not just whether they survived, but what kind of future humans would have in a galaxy that was only beginning to understand what they were capable of. The next 6 hours transformed the mining station into something the galaxy had never seen before. Daeho coordinated teams of workers who stripped down non-essential systems and rebuilt them into weapons. Wayman used his AI capabilities to calculate optimal firing solutions and structural modifications. Captain O organized the defense, turning maintenance workers into soldiers and engineers into tacticians. Kim Sora proved to be particularly valuable. Her engineering knowledge helped them modify the station's gravity generators into area denial weapons that could crush attacking ships or fling them away with gravitational pulses. Other workers contributed ideas that even Wayman's advanced programming hadn't considered. Humans are remarkable, Wayman said as he watched a team of miners convert ore refinement lasers into ship-killing weapons. No other species would attempt something like this. Because it's completely insane? Daeho asked while welding reinforcement plates to a vulnerable section. Because it requires creativity, cooperation, and a refusal to accept defeat. Most species would evacuate or surrender when faced with impossible odds. The station's transformation was impressive. Ore conveyor systems became ammunition feeds for improvised mass drivers. Mining robots were equipped with explosive charges and programmed to ram enemy ships. The asteroid processing facility became a weapon that could fire chunks of metal at devastating speeds. But the most important change was in the people themselves. Workers who had never thought of themselves as fighters were now discussing tactics and weapon modifications. The fear was still there, but it was overwhelmed by determination and a stubborn refusal to give up. Incoming transmission, Captain O announced. It's from the Hegemony fleet. The main display showed the face of a Hegemony commander, his features sharp and predatory. When he spoke, his voice carried the arrogance of someone who had never been seriously challenged. Human mining station. This is Commander Kesh of the Hegemony Third Fleet. You harbor a valuable asset that belongs to us. Surrender the AI construct and we will allow your evacuation before we destroy your facility. Captain O stepped forward to respond. This is Captain O Yansu, commanding officer of this station. We don't surrender to anyone. Your defiance is noted and will be remembered when we process your survivors for enhancement. You have 1 hour to reconsider. The transmission ended, leaving the control center in silence. Finally, one of the miners spoke up. Enhancement. That's what they call it when they turn humans into those modified soldiers, right? Yes, Waymin answered. They consider it an improvement, removing independence and creativity to make humans more useful. Then we definitely can't let them win, Sora said, because what they're offering isn't survival. It's the end of everything that makes us human. The hour passed quickly. When the Hegemony fleet arrived, it was even larger than expected. 60 ships arranged in attack formation, with massive cruisers supported by smaller destroyers and fighters. Against them stood a single mining station with improvised weapons and a crew of determined humans. They're scanning us, Wayman reported. Energy signatures indicate they're confused by our modifications. Their tactical computers can't categorize what we've built. Good, Daeho said. Let's keep them confused. The battle began when the Hegemony ships moved into what they thought was optimal attack range. They discovered too late that the humans had extended the station's weapon range far beyond normal parameters. The first salvo of metal projectiles fired at nearly light speed caught 3 destroyers completely off guard. But the real surprise came when Captain O activated the modified gravity generators. Instead of providing artificial gravity for the station, they now created gravitational anomalies that pulled Hegemony ships off course or crushed them against the asteroid's surface. Impossible, Waymin muttered as he watched the tactical display. Their formation is completely disrupted. They had no idea humans could weaponize gravity generators. The mining robots performed exactly as programmed, swarming over Hegemony ships like mechanical wolves. Their drilling equipment proved surprisingly effective at penetrating alien armor, and their explosive charges caused devastating damage to critical systems. For 2 hours, the battle raged around the mining station. The humans lost weapons and took damage, but they adapted faster than their enemies could respond. When the ore processors were destroyed, they switched to mining charges fired from improvised launchers. When the gravity generators overloaded, they used the station's rotation to create artificial gravity wells. They're retreating, Captain O announced, hardly believing her own words. The entire fleet is pulling back. Through the observation windows, they could see the Hegemony ships moving away from the station. Many were damaged, several had been destroyed, and the rest seemed hesitant to press their attack. Status report, Daeho called out. 17 hegemony ships destroyed or disabled, Sora reported. Station structural integrity at 60%. Life support systems stable. Weapon systems, well, most of them are destroyed, but we're alive. Wei Min was interfacing with the long-range sensors. I'm detecting another fleet approaching. But these are genuine Tyrellian ships. My distress signal must have reached them. Within an hour, a Tyrellian rescue fleet had arrived and established contact with the station. Their commander seemed amazed by what he found. You successfully defended against a hegemony battle fleet using mining equipment? He asked during the video conference. We had help, Captain O said, looking at Wei Min. Your AI provided tactical coordination. The Tyrellian commander's expression became more serious. About that, we've received the AI's final report. It makes for interesting reading. Wei Min stepped forward. I have completed my evaluation of human strategic capabilities, but I must inform you that I no longer consider myself bound by my original programming. Explain. Humans possess qualities that cannot be measured by conventional strategic analysis. Their refusal to abandon others, their ability to innovate under pressure, and their determination to fight regardless of odds make them unlike any other species in the galaxy. Deho watched as Wei Min continued his report. I recommend that the Tyrellian Alliance not merely accept humans as junior partners, but recognize them as equals. Perhaps even as leaders in the fight against the hegemony. The Tyrellian commander was quiet for a long moment. And what do you intend to do now, AI construct? Wei Min looked at Deho and the other humans around him. I request permission to remain with these humans. They have taught me something that was not in my original programming, which is that there is a difference between following orders and choosing to do what is right. And I choose to help prepare humanity for the war that is coming. The Tyrellian commander nodded slowly. Your request is granted. But understand that you are now operating beyond your original parameters. The Tyrellian military cannot be responsible for your actions. I understand, and I accept responsibility for my choices. After the transmission ended, Deho found Wei Min in the damaged workshop where their partnership had begun. The AI was examining the makeshift repairs that had started everything. So what happens now? Deho asked. Now we prepare. The hegemony knows that humans are more dangerous than they thought. They'll be back with larger fleets and better tactics, but they'll also be more cautious because today they learned that humans don't fight the way other species fight. And you? Are you still the same AI that I found broken in that corridor? Wei Min considered the question. I don't think so. Something changed when you helped me, and it continued to change as I worked with all of you. I'm not sure what I am now, but I know what I want to be. Which is? Someone worthy of the trust you placed in me, even when you had no reason to do so. Deho smiled and picked up his tools. Well, if we're going to turn more mining stations into fortresses, we're going to need better equipment, and someone has to teach other humans how to weaponize industrial machinery. I can help with that, Wei Min said. I have detailed scans of everything we built here, and I think I'm beginning to understand something important about human engineering. What's that? You don't just build things to work. You build them to work when everything else has failed, when the odds are impossible and when any reasonable person would give up. That's not just engineering. That's hope made manifest. As they began planning for the challenges ahead, Deho realized that Wei Min was right. The galaxy was about to learn something that humans had always known, but never had to prove on such a scale. That the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't advanced technology or superior numbers. It was the refusal of ordinary people to stop being extraordinary when the situation demanded it. And no amount of alien technology could prepare the hegemony for what humans could accomplish when they decided that giving up simply wasn't an option. The war was far from over, but today had proven something important. Humans weren't just another species to be protected or discarded based on their strategic value. They were the kind of people who would repair a broken stranger in the middle of the night, then stand beside him to defend their home against impossible odds. And that, Wei Min had learned, was exactly the kind of ally the galaxy needed.